Paratiso. We would like to welcome all of you to this very special webinar. Before we start and before I introduce you our speaker today, I would like to let you know and give you some information, okay? We have, last week we started we opened a call for proposals for those people that are interested in sharing their expertise, their knowledge, and their passion for English language teaching. In case you're interested in also giving a webinar in the upcoming weeks or months, please make sure that you visit our social media and take a look at our call for proposals, because we are really interested in giving teachers, caring and interested teachers in sharing their expertise this platform, so they can also share what they know. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Vivian Gunsett. She's going to share with us about social emotional learning and resilience. So thank you so much, Vivian, for being with us today. And this is going to be a special and a little bit different webinar, because it's going to be a two-part. This is the first part. It's a two-part webinar, okay? The previous ones that we had in May were one standalone webinars, all related to online teaching, but this very special webinar is a two-part one, and it has to do with social and emotional learning and resilience. So thank you, Vivian, for being with us today and next week as well.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to be finally here and with all of you. And I'm seeing some familiar faces, so that brings me a lot of joy. And let me explain you how we are going to work during this webinar and during the next one. We are going to have a little bit like a different webinar from what we are used to, because it's going to be more experiential. We are going to interact, and I will ask for your participation in some situations, which are going to be 3. And in the first one, you can type your answers if you feel comfortable. In the second one, it's going to be a little bit too personal, so you can just type done when you finish doing it. You don't need to share your answers with us. And in the third one, I would like to know all of your answers, because it's not about us, it's about a fictional situation, so we can all analyze together. So that's how we are going to work for this webinar. And first, we are going to focus on social emotional learning, and the resilience part, we are going to leave it for next Saturday. So I hope you all be there. And let's start with the first exercise, that is a self-awareness and self-analysis exercise. So I invite you just to think for a while in something or someone that makes you happy. And with that person or with that thing in mind, I want you to take 2 seconds to be grateful for that, or for that thing, or for that person. In my case, I'm thankful for my fiance, and I take 2 seconds to be grateful for that. And if you want to type on the chat box, Elena will help me read the answers. What makes you happy, and what are you grateful for? Just a few seconds to think, and I hope to see some of your answers if you feel comfortable to share with us.
Okay, so let me read some of the answers. Nature, grateful for life are some of the answers.
Perfect.
My 3-year-old daughter, I'm grateful for my health, my family, my school community, fresh coffee.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, perfect.
Grateful for spending time with my children, my kids, our health and home, food and cooking, chocolate, to my family, job, health, music, my niece, my family and their health, my mom, aunt, and friends. This cold day, I'm grateful for my family, their lives and wellness during this pandemic, my family. I'm grateful for everything I have gone through life because it has turned me into the person I am today. My family, lots of
Wow.
family, music, friends, health. Those are,
Amazing answers. Oh my God. So happy to read all of the reasons that you have to stay positive and to stay happy during all this hard time. So with that short self-awareness exercise, I think we are all ready to start speaking about social emotional learning. So let us begin with the definition of social emotional learning. So this is the process through which we have the ability to recognize, understand, manage our own emotions, and make responsible decisions, as well as achieving positive goals, maintaining positive relationships, and show empathy for others. So don't worry, we are going to go through all of these aspects one at a time, and we are going to see the 5 social emotional skills that are self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. So let's start with self-awareness, which is the exercise that we just did. And we are feeling emotions all the time. We experience emotions all the time, but we rarely pause to reflect about them and how they affect our behavior. So let's watch for a moment this iceberg of human complexity and think for a while in a person that you care about. Normally, we can see their behavior, but we cannot see how they are feeling or what are their needs unless they tell us. So it is much more easy to see the behavior than what is behind that. So with that in mind, we are going to do a deeper analysis on behavior. So behavior represents strategies for getting our needs met. And now I invite you to think about a classroom context when, like in the past, we were teaching in classrooms, and we could normally see that our students were showing some aggressive behavior. But what we really don't see is that behind that can be loneliness or feelings of rejection, and they feel frustrated at home. So that can happen to us too. Normally we show something, but people don't understand what we are going through in our environment. So behavior can also be a reaction to a crisis or trauma or difficult situations that we are going through. So with that in mind, when we are facing a difficult situation or a crisis, we have the freedom to choose. And we have to do this exercise, like a traffic light exercise, and follow these steps to make the right decision. This is a way to be mindful of the moment and analyze all the alternatives that we have. So the first step is, the color red, is to stop. We should count to 10, breathe deeply, and be mindful of the new situation, the new crisis that we are facing. Then we should think, that's the yellow, and we should think about the very many alternatives that we have. And finally, we should decide to do what is best, not only for us, but also for people that surrounds us. So I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper into this traffic light exercise, because the freedom to choose is key to have a good response and an adaptive response to a situation. So between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our freedom to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So there are 2 types of responses that we can choose. The reactive responses are emotion-based, they are feeling-driven, they are situational and inconsistent. This is when we act by impulse. Something very dramatic just happened and I do whatever it pops in my mind first, and I don't have the time to think about it. And the proactive responses are value-based, they are choice-driven, they are strategic, and they are consistent. So this is what we should aim for if we want to make better decisions. And now I invite you for the second moment of interaction, but this is the moment that you shouldn't write your answers. It's just a personal silent exercise, and it might take us like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. It's okay, and we can be silent during that moment. You will just be doing the self-awareness analysis by yourself, and when you are done with that, you can type done in the comment section, and Elena will help me reading that so I know when to move on, okay? So the invitation is for you to choose a recent situation that was challenging or emotionally charged, and according to that situation, you're going to reflect on the following questions. So let me give you just an example. Yesterday, I felt offended by a comment that my sister-in-law wrote on a WhatsApp group, and I had like the urge and the impulse to reply very aggressively, because it's not the first time that she has made this kind of passive-aggressive comments. But I practiced the traffic light exercise, and I stop for a while, I breathe, and then I'm like, what am I earning by responding aggressively? Nothing. Like, I'm going to follow her game, and I'm gaining nothing. So I just didn't reply. So that was my exercise. But I would like you to follow these steps and go with me through the questions, and then you think about the situation that happened to you. So the first question is, how did you feel during this situation? So if you name the feeling, it's more likely that the intensity of that feeling gets reduced. And in the second question, what were your feelings telling you? Normally, feelings gives us information about what we need from the people we care about, from our work environment, from the systems we depend on, from the government, something that we need. And the third question is, what did you do about these feelings? Did you hide the feelings? Did you ignore the feelings? Did you deny the feelings? Sometimes we do that because we don't like to feel uncomfortable, but that leads us to maladaptive responses, and they are not constructive. And the fourth question is, what would you do differently the next time you are faced with a similar situation? So now I will open a silent moment for you to just think about this situation. And please type done when you're finished your self-awareness exercise. Thank you so much.
And some people started writing done, and they are around 20 so far. So maybe we can give them a few more minutes, and because
Great.
there are 60 people here, so maybe a minute will be enough.
Yes, perfect. Let's do it. Awesome.
I think that at least 50% of our participants are done already.
Perfect. So I would like to thank you so much for participating in this. I know sometimes it's very hard to find time in our busy schedules to do this. And this is a great opportunity just for us to be more mindful about how we react when we are facing like very difficult situations. So we can continue. So now I'm going to bring up to the meeting to a fictional character, and we will analyze her feelings and her behaviors, okay? So she's teacher Gabriela, and teacher Gabriela is my coworker, okay? So I can see that she's showing a kind of a weird behavior because she is very distrustful of others and she avoids talking to people. So maybe that's all I can see, and I don't really talk to her, so I cannot know that she's feeling lonely. That's the feeling behind that. And what do you think is the feeling? The feeling is loneliness, and what do you think is the need behind that feeling? Probably is meaningful connections. So we are going to analyze how she got this lonely, how she started to feel lonely, because she used to have a lot of friends, but one of her friends hurt her. And since that day, she started being distrustful of others because she wanted to avoid getting hurt by other people. And that's how she lost many of her friends. So I know this is a very extreme case, and we are most likely not going to experience like totally isolation, but we are going to use these examples so we can give her some suggestions about what to do with her loneliness. Yes, so first she should recognize that feeling lonely is normal, and most of us feel it at some point in our lives. And by naming the feeling, she's also reducing the intensity of that feeling. And the second point is making observations rather than evaluations. Because she is distrustful of people, that means that she perceives threats where there isn't any threat. So maybe she's talking to a colleague and she's interpreting the words of the colleague like as they were attacking her, but in reality, her colleague was just short on time and it was very direct, and she interpreted that as being mean to her. But we should really analyze the context of the conversation and what were the actual words. And if Gabriela practiced this exercise, she might notice that it wasn't a criticism to her, it was just something that happened due to the situation. And also, when regarding social interaction, she should start accepting invitations and stop making excuses for declining them. And if she can meet online due to this whole situation. She can do meetings with her old friends. And if she completely stopped receiving invitations, she can initiate them and try to reconnect and reach out to some of her old friends and asking how they are. So this was the first fictional situation about Gabriela. And now we are going to go to the next social emotional learning skill, that is self-management. And what is that? Is the ability to regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And to be able to do this, we should set uninterrupted times where we are focusing on our families, house tasks, and relaxation. So this is very important because otherwise we have too many distractions and we are not able to enjoy any of the activities that we are doing. So in order to possess self-management, we should have impulse control, and this is related to delayed gratification. We should also have self-discipline, which is being able to ignore all of the distraction and follow our plan. Then we have goal setting. As we all know, we should create SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And the self-motivation part is being able to overcome obstacles and have the willpower to reach our goal. And organizational skills relates to having our working space neat and organized, and we can also apply that to our schedules. We should be realistic about what can we achieve in a day so we can actually meet expectations and we can finish our tasks on time. And stress management, we will leave that for the next slides because we will pay a lot of attention to how we manage our stress, okay? So before we understand stress management, I would like you to know the progression of stress response, okay? So the positive stress is when we have brief increases in our heart rate, and it's a mild elevation in stress hormones. And tolerable stress is serious temporary stress responses. But we are able to cope with the stress because we have supportive relationships. And toxic stress is when we don't have those supportive relationships, and it's a prolonged activation of the stress response. So with that being said, now let's see this kind of math situation, yes? So if we have work-related stress and we add to that poor emotion management and student misbehavior, that normally leads teachers to become dissatisfied and leave their position, and that is what we don't want. So social emotional learning is key in this situation, so we are well balanced and we actually pay attention to our emotional well-being. And on a more positive note, if teachers are trained in the behavioral and emotional factors that influence learning and teaching, it's more likely that they have better classroom management and they create a positive learning environment. So even though we are not going to cover classroom management skills in this webinar, we are only talking about social emotional learning, I highly suggest you dive into restorative practices in classrooms, and especially when we go back to the old system, like to the classroom settings, because they are alternative responses to harm or misconduct that brings together all of those involved in conflicts in ways that help people address harm, create accountability, move past shame and guilt, and build stronger and healthier relationships with each other. So I will leave that for a future opportunity, but I highly encourage you to look more about restorative justice practices. Yes, this is about how to deal with misbehaviors. And now going back to what it is, social emotional learning skills, our next skill is responsible decision making. And this includes us making the right choice, not only for us, but for the people that surround us, and choosing how to use our time. So instead of scrolling endlessly on our favorite social network or binge watching videos or movies, we should stop and analyze what we are feeling and how is that feeling affecting our behavior. And maybe we should even analyze our habits. If there are some habits that are not helping us to adapt to a new situation, we should change them. And we can also check our goals. And if the goals are not realistic for a situation, we should pivot them and make it work so we can make a better use of our time. And if we use all of our cognitive bandwidth, it's divided into many activities. We are chipping away percentages of the bandwidth, and we leave almost nothing to care about our needs and our goals. So now I invite you to think about another fictional situation, and in this case it's Teacher Maria. And this is a very dramatic, again, situation, yes? But it helps us illustrate better about managing all the stress and all the emotions, okay? So the fictional situation is that Teacher Maria found out that her husband cheated on her, yes? So think about this. How do you think Maria felt when she found out this? And with that in mind, we will see each of these scarf dimensions. They are dimensions within which our brain respond to threats. So let's see, the first one is status. Let's see. Do you think that Maria felt that she was important to her husband when she realized this? Do you think she was able to predict this betrayal? Do you think she had control over what just happened? Do you think that she felt safe with her husband? And the last one, do you think she felt like there was a fair exchange with her husband? And this is the third moment of interaction. I would like you to type which of these dimensions was threatened by this situation. And Elena, can you please help me read what they comment?
Well, one of the first comments says, "Oh no, Maria's world fell apart." Another comment says, "It's a mix of emotions, not just one." Another person agrees with the previous comment. And let's see them if there are more people.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Another person asks, can it be all at the same time? The question, betrayed poor Maria, again, relatedness, it will be hard for her to feel safe in the relationship. Another person chose status. I'm not sure I understand fairness. If you could expand a little bit on that.
Yes, so fairness would be like if I give something in a relationship, I expect to receive the same respect or the same amount of honesty that I'm giving. So in this case, that Maria found out that they cheated on her, like, do you think she felt like her husband was being fair with her?
So she felt that it was unfair. That's like a follow-up question to what you have just commented.
Yes.
Okay. Another person wrote, Maria probably feels worthless.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So yes, answering to one of the comments, I think it's all of them. All of the dimensions are being threatened by this situation. I will feel like devastated and overwhelmed. So for me, yes, it's all of them. I don't know if you agree, but yes.
Another person mentioned that I think it depends on each personality as well. That's another interesting comment.
Yes, exactly. It's like how much of coping skills do you have to deal with this situation? That is also true.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So with that situation in mind, we are going to see how Maria managed her stress. Yes, I'm not saying that the situation that I will just go on to explain is like the ideal situation. Everyone should manage the way that is healthier for them, but this is the way that Maria solved this conflict, and that's how she managed to survive this new situation. Yes. So again, the challenge or crisis was that she found out that her husband cheated on her. On the survival stage, she was overwhelmed, angry, devastated, like a person commented, like her world fell apart. But in the survival stage, she also reached to some friends, and they helped her, they supported her, they didn't judge her. So she also found strength in her daughters, and she was able to survive that crisis. On the adaptation stage, she was still angry, of course, but she managed to talk to her husband in spite of all the anger. They talked in a calm tone, and they were both willing to dive into very hard conversations to understand why they stopped communicating honestly, or why they stopped caring at some point, and they didn't even try to solve the conflicts. They just let them go, and it's like nothing happened, and it ended up in this situation. So they try to know why that happened, and also they were willing to create something new of this and to make it work again. That is in the adaptation stage. And in the growth stage, they were willing to recommit and also to rebuild the trust. And they created some agreements, and they held each other accountable to prevent that from happening again. So that is Maria's situation. Each is different, and we cope with these situations in different way, and we should find what is healthier for us if we happen to have the same situation. So just following up on Maria's story, we are going to analyze her relationship skills, which is the next social emotional learning skill. So because she had very good friends that supported her and didn't judge her and didn't assume anything, she was able to gather some strength and to fix her situation with her husband. And also she had conflict resolution skills because she was able to facilitate an environment where they could collaborate and also reach reconciliation. And the final social emotional learning skill is social awareness. And how do we practice social awareness? By empathizing with others from all backgrounds and cultures, and by understanding a situation from a different point of view. And how do we empathize with our friends or colleagues? We can just do active listening when they speak, and like honestly showing that we care about what they're saying with our facial expressions, with our following up questions, and they should be open-ended questions, and also not judging and not assuming. And how else can we practice social awareness? Maybe by doing community service, volunteering work. So with this final skill that is social awareness, we finish the 5 skills of social emotional learning. And I would suggest you to go to this link, and there you can see a free online course for teachers on how to teach all these skills to children, teenagers, and even adults. And this is a free online course, so you can access whenever you want. And what I like about this is that it's adapted for all ages. So I consider this is the next step for us after this introduction, yes? And for next Saturday, we will be talking about habits to be more resilient. And you will have access to all the resources where I found all of this information. And now I want to thank you all for being here. And if you have any questions, Elena will help me with that. And maybe you can type them on the chat box. And I'm here for anything that you need.